Have you ever stood in a room where someone tried to make you feel small? Not with a shout, not with a fist, but with a joke, one that wasn't funny, a glare, a word laced with subtle disrespect. And in that suspended moment when all eyes turned, you froze. Not because you lacked words, but because somewhere deep inside, you were asking, how should I respond to not just defend myself, but to make them respect me? Or maybe it was a time when your voice was quietly pushed aside, your ideas brushed off like dust, and no one seemed to notice. Or worse, they noticed and said nothing. You left that moment carrying an invisible weight, the question echoing inside, why did that happen? And what should I have done? But here's a more powerful question. What if every one of those moments was an opportunity, a chance, not to retaliate, but to reveal something deeper? Your unshakable calm, your inner command, your quiet authority. What if respect wasn't something others give, but something you create by the way you carry yourself, especially under pressure? In this journey, we don't reach for quick fixes or angry comebacks. Instead, we draw from the enduring strength of Stoic philosophy. Because the Stoics understood, true power doesn't shout. It stands still, it sees clearly, and it chooses how to respond. So in the next few moments, you're going to learn how to turn discomfort into dignity, how to navigate disrespect with clarity, and how to make others remember, not your words, but the unwavering presence you held in silence. Let's begin. There's a quiet truth most people overlook. First impressions are rarely about what you say. They're about how you enter a space, how you greet someone, and what your presence tells them before a single word leaves your lips. Imagine this. You're at a gathering, someone important approaches, offering their hand, but instead of rising, you remain seated. You glance at their hand briefly, shake it half-heartedly, and return to your seat. You didn't mean to offend, but you've just communicated volumes, unintentionally, and the message wasn't strength. Now contrast that with another version of you. You rise, meet their eyes, stand with quiet composure, and engage, not with rehearsed charm, but with presence. It's subtle, but it lands. The Stoics believe that even the smallest gestures reflect our inner world. To stand when others approach is not merely etiquette. It is philosophy in motion. It says, I recognize your presence, and I honor my own. I once observed a man at a professional seminar. He wasn't flashy. He didn't speak often. But whether he was greeting a senior executive or thanking a waiter for coffee, he always rose. He looked people in the eye, and he listened fully. People noticed, not because he was trying to stand out, but because he wasn't. He was simply there, unshaken, aware, present. Just nearby was another man, equally skilled, but he remained seated for every greeting. It was just a habit, but slowly people overlooked him, not because he wasn't capable, but because his actions whispered detachment. This is where the Stoic path reveals itself. Our power lies not in controlling the room, but in mastering ourselves. And presence, physical, emotional, intentional, is the first gate to respect. So start there. Stand when someone enters. Look them in the eye. Let your body speak long before your words ever do. As Marcus Aurelius once wrote, you have power over your mind, not outside events. Realize this, and you will find strength. And that strength begins in the small things. But what happens when someone doesn't just overlook you, but interrupts you? Imagine you're mid-sentence, sharing a thought, and someone barges in, hijacking your moment. Your instinct might tell you to speak louder, to reclaim your place, but the Stoic within you knows better. Don't rush, don't raise your voice, just turn and look at them, not with fury, but with stillness. Let your eyes do the speaking. That calm, silent gaze says what words never could. You've crossed a line, and I am not shaken. It might only last 3 seconds, but in those seconds you hold the room. You hold yourself. I remember a dinner years ago. I was mid-story, something lighthearted, when a relative cut me off to tell his own. For a moment I felt small, dismissed, but instead of pushing back, I paused. I turned toward him and waited. The silence did the work. His voice stumbled, and soon the story came back to me. I hadn't said a word, but somehow I'd said everything. That's the kind of strength Stoicism teaches, the kind that doesn't need to raise its voice to be heard. When the time feels right, return to your sentence with quiet authority. Let me continue where I left off. Simple, steady, unapologetic. You haven't embarrassed anyone. You haven't escalated, but you've reminded everyone, including yourself, that your voice deserves space and it will not be silenced. In the next breath, let's explore how to handle something even trickier. When someone turns your past, your vulnerability, into the punchline of a joke. Imagine you're with friends, people you've known for years. The mood is light, laughter fills the room, and then suddenly, someone decides to entertain the group with your embarrassment. They dig up an old story, one you'd rather forget. Everyone laughs, even you force a smile. But deep down, something shrinks. Not because the story was so terrible, but because it was told not with affection, but with the quiet intention to mock. Now, your first impulse might be to clap back with a sharper joke, to regain the crowd by outwitting them. But that's not the Stoic way, because Stoicism teaches us, if something doesn't harm your essence, it's not worth your distress. So instead, you turn calmly to the person, smile gently, and say, "I didn't quite catch that. Could you repeat it?" In that moment, everything changes. The momentum of the joke dissolves. The air shifts. The storyteller, once confident in their punchline, now finds themselves repeating it, this time to a quieter room. The laughter doesn't come as easily, the humor sounds thinner, and the spotlight they tried to turn on you now turns on them. You haven't argued, you haven't retaliated. You've simply disarmed the moment with calm curiosity, and in doing so, you've exposed its shallowness. This isn't just a clever trick, it's a powerful act of self-possession. I've seen it work. I've used it myself. A calm question, spoken in a neutral tone, can unravel a public humiliation far more effectively than any witty comeback. Because here's the truth the Stoics knew well. When you remain composed in the face of provocation, you don't just win the moment, you elevate yourself beyond it. It reminds others, and more importantly, reminds you, that no one has the power to drag you down without your permission. So the next time someone tries to make you the target of their humor, don't defend, don't explain. Ask them to repeat it, and watch how quickly the weight of their words falls back on them. Now let's take this one step deeper. What if someone tries to provoke you not with a joke, but with a direct attack, aimed a wound? And what if you didn't just stay calm, but turn the entire room with a single question? You're at a family gathering. The conversation is flowing. Laughter, stories, a warm hum of connection. And then, without warning, someone slices through it all with a single comment, a remark aimed squarely at you, maybe about your career, or your relationships, or some moment in your past they know still stings. It lands like a stone dropped into water. Suddenly, the room feels colder. Eyes shift toward you, waiting, watching. They want to see what you'll do. And this is where your power begins. You don't tense. You don't explain. You don't bite. Instead, you take a soft breath and you ask the simplest, most unexpected thing. Hey, does anyone know a good bakery around here? I've been craving something sweet lately. Just like that, the tension snaps. The sharpness of the remark is left hanging, unanswered. The provocation collapses under its own weight. Why? Because you've stepped off their stage. You've refused to play their game. And in doing so, you've taken back control, completely. This technique at first glance might seem too gentle, too evasive, but in truth, it's one of the most disarming things you can do, because it reveals that you're untouchable, not numb, not cold, just anchored in your own center of gravity. The Stoics taught that our peace of mind is sacred, that nothing external can truly disturb us unless we allow it. By shifting the conversation with a light, unrelated question, you demonstrate mastery. You've changed the energy, not with force, but with subtle redirection. It's a psychological sleight of hand, but done not for manipulation, for preservation of your dignity, of your peace, of your presence. And when done with authenticity, not sarcasm, not cynicism, people notice. Not just the person who tried to provoke you, everyone. They begin to sense that you're not someone easily shaken, that you don't beg for respect, you quietly demand it by how little you allow to control you. This isn't just about surviving uncomfortable moments. It's about using them, turning them into mirrors, where your calm reflects your strength and your stillness speaks louder than rage ever could. But what if the disrespect doesn't come as a joke or a sharp comment? What if it's deeper than that? What if the people around you simply don't value you at all? What if they ignore your ideas, overlook your efforts, or treat you like you don't belong? Not once, but over and over again. This is where the final and perhaps most difficult choice appears. One the Stoics themselves knew intimately, the choice to walk away. It doesn't always come with fireworks. Sometimes it's as simple as standing up, closing your laptop, and deciding quietly, I won't spend my life proving my worth to those who refuse to see it. I knew someone once, Sarah. Brilliant, creative, relentless. She joined a high-profile project, excited to contribute, but week after week, her voice was drowned out, her ideas dismissed, her presence dimmed by a manager who ridiculed her in front of others like it was sport. At first, she worked harder, stayed later, tried everything to earn what she should never have had to chase, basic respect. But there came a moment, a meeting like all the others, where her input was ignored again. And that day she didn't argue. She didn't defend. She simply closed her laptop, looked at the room and said calmly, I think it's time I put my energy into a place that actually values it. Then she walked out. No drama, no bitterness, just resolve. That same week, she resigned. And months later, she stepped into a new role, one where she was not only respected, but celebrated. Walking away is often mistaken for weakness, but in truth, it's one of the purest expressions of self-respect. Because to leave a space that refuses to recognize your value is to affirm that you do. As Epictetus taught, you are not a slave unless you think you are. And sometimes the greatest act of freedom is walking away from where you've been quietly caged. You don't walk away to make a statement. You do it to protect the relationship that matters most, the one with yourself. When every effort to build respect is met with silence, when you feel your voice eroding from the inside out, that is your sign. It's not surrender, it's clarity, it's strength. To leave a place that refuses to honor you is to choose once again the Stoic path, to control only what you can, and that includes the rooms you enter and the ones you leave behind. So if ever you find yourself seated at a table where your worth isn't seen, maybe the most powerful thing you can do is stand up and walk away. Because in the end, respect isn't something you demand with force. It's something you teach others to give you by how you treat yourself and how quietly you refuse to stay where it's missing. You are not here to convince anyone of your worth. You are here to embody it, and in doing so, you don't just gain the respect of others, you gain something even rarer, your own. And when you embody it fully, you begin to notice something subtle but profound. You no longer chase situations that drain you. You no longer seek approval from people too small to recognize your value. You simply move differently. You walk into rooms without needing to dominate. You walk out of rooms without needing to explain. Your dignity is no longer something fragile, something hanging in the balance of other people's opinions. It becomes something internal, rooted, unshakable. And that, above all else, commands respect. Because most people are prisoners of their own need for validation. They crave applause. They fear silence. They bend and twist themselves to fit spaces that never truly wanted them. But not you, not anymore. You have learned the ancient lesson the Stoics taught centuries ago, that the only respect that matters is the one you first offer yourself. And by embodying that, you naturally teach others how to treat you, without shouting, without demanding, without resentment. You simply are. It is a powerful thing to move through the world quietly, intentionally, unwaveringly, like a stone in a rushing river, unmoved by the passing currents. It's in your smallest choices, the way you greet someone, the way you hold eye contact when interrupted, the way you smile or stay silent when others try to provoke you, the way you shift conversations away from conflict without carrying bitterness in your heart. Each small act is a thread. Together they weave the fabric of a life built on strength, serenity, and respect. And you begin to see more and more clearly that dignity is not reactive. It is proactive. It's not about defending yourself against disrespect. It's about living in a way that makes disrespect irrelevant. When you embody these principles, something even more remarkable happens. You inspire others, without preaching, without correcting them, simply by being the example, the calm in the storm, the stillness that reminds others they too can choose peace over pettiness, presence over pride, and slowly, quietly, the spaces around you begin to change. The noise grows softer, the games lose their appeal. The people who value depth find their way to you, and the ones who live in the shallow waters drift away. No anger, no regret, only the natural separation that occurs when you choose a different kind of life, a higher kind of life. A life guided not by the desperate need to prove yourself, but by the quiet certainty that you already are enough. And so, when the next challenge comes, when someone mocks, interrupts, belittles, or provokes, You won't need to remember techniques. You won't need to rehearse strategies. You will simply act as you are, calm, grounded, unshaken. Because these lessons, once deeply absorbed, stop being tactics, they become you. You are no longer playing a role. You are no longer performing strength. You are living it. And there is no force more magnetic, more quietly commanding than a soul at peace with itself. Marcus Aurelius wrote, "Waste no more time arguing what a good man should be one." You don't need to tell the world you're worthy of respect. You don't need to convince it. You need only to be. And in your being, your calm, steady, intentional being, you will earn the respect that is real. The kind that doesn't vanish when you leave the room. The kind that is rooted in truth, not performance. The kind that, once earned, never needs to be chased again. Now, as you carry this wisdom forward into your life, into the meetings, the conversations, the friendships, the moments when you are tested, remember, the path is not easy. It requires vigilance, presence, courage, but it is worth it, because to walk the Stoic path, to live with dignity in a world that profits from drama, is to choose a higher way. It is to turn every insult into a stepping stone, every slight into a mirror for growth, every challenge into a chance to demonstrate who you are. And little by little, moment by moment, action by action, you build not just a reputation, but a character, a way of moving through the world that no one can take from you. Not with words, not with jokes, not with disrespect, because your respect is not hanging in their hands. It's already planted deeply, irrevocably inside you. And from that place, you rise. And when you rise, something profound begins to happen. You stop needing the world's noisy validation. You stop adjusting your worth based on fleeting glances, passing comments, temporary applause. You step outside that endless cycle. You live differently. People feel it. They sense the shift. Some will admire it. Others will be uncomfortable with it. But none will be able to ignore it. Because real presence, calm, rooted, unwavering, cannot be overlooked. It speaks to something ancient inside everyone who encounters it. It reminds them, without a word, of what true strength looks like. Not the strength of domination, not the strength of noise, but the strength of someone who governs themselves, whose worth is not measured by external rewards, but by internal consistency. And that is what the Stoics knew. That peace is the ultimate power. To face insult without anger, to face disrespect without fear, to face misunderstanding without needing to prove or explain. It is not apathy, it is mastery. It is a life lived in accordance with nature, reason, and virtue, not tossed about by every tide of public opinion. It is the deep, unshakable knowing that your dignity is not something that can be given or taken. It is yours by right, by choice, by the way you live. And so every time you are tested, when someone challenges you with sarcasm, with interruption, with humiliation, you no longer see it as an attack. You see it as an invitation to practice, to demonstrate who you have become, to show, not with words, but with stillness, that your peace is not for sale, that your respect is not something others decide. It is something you embody. Every moment, every breath, every encounter. And in that embodiment, you discover a freedom most people will never know. Freedom from the approval of the crowd, freedom from the games of the petty, freedom from the endless hunger to be seen, heard, validated, because you have already seen yourself. You have already heard yourself. You have already validated your own existence through the way you choose to live. And that is enough. That has always been enough. From this place, your life begins to transform. Conversations deepen. Relationships shift. Your circle refines itself, naturally without force. Those who value noise, gossip, conflict, they drift away. Those who value depth, clarity, presence, they are drawn to you, not because you chase them, not because you convince them, but because the vibration of your life speaks louder than any words could. And now as you move forward, the choice will come again and again. Every meeting, every disagreement, every slight, the world will ask you, with its chaos, its criticism, its confusion, what are you made of? And every time, without needing to say a word, you will answer, with your presence, with your calm, with your unshakable peace. And in doing so, you will continue building something far more valuable than reputation. You will build a legacy of dignity, a legacy of resilience, a legacy of quiet, enduring strength. One that will outlast the noise, one that will stand long after the last insult has faded into silence. Because in the end, true power is not about making others bow before you. It's about walking so firmly in your own path that others, if they are wise, choose to walk beside you. And those who cannot simply fall away. No bitterness, no anger, only gratitude. Gratitude that you were tested and rose. Gratitude that you were challenged and grew stronger. Gratitude that you were called to embody not just a better version of yourself, but the best. A self that does not sway with every passing wind. A self that does not shrink under pressure. A self that stands quietly, powerfully, in full possession of its own worth. And that is the ultimate Stoic victory. Not over others, over yourself. As you leave this reflection behind and step back into your life, remember, you don't need louder words. You don't need sharper comebacks. You don't need anyone's permission to be who you already are. You only need to remember that every situation is a stage, every provocation, a test, every encounter, a chance to embody presence, to embody dignity, to embody strength, because the world doesn't need more noise. It needs more people who know how to be silent, and in that silence hold an entire room. You are that person now. And as you move forward, may your calm be your shield. May your clarity be your sword. And may your very presence, without a word, command the respect you no longer need to seek. If this message stirred something within you, if you feel the call to live more deeply, more intentionally, more unshakably, I invite you to join this journey. Subscribe, stay close, grow with us. And if you're not sure what to say, simply leave a comment. I walk the Stoic path. Because every journey begins with a single step. And today, you've already taken it. I'll leave 2 more reflections here for you, waiting to deepen your wisdom, to strengthen your soul, to remind you who you have always been beneath the noise. Until next time, walk calmly, walk bravely, walk free. And before we part ways today, I want to leave you with a reflection, not as advice, but as a quiet offering. In the final years of his life, Marcus Aurelius, the most powerful man of his time, would rise before the sun. In the freezing cold of Roman mornings, he would sit alone with his thoughts, not to strategize his empire, not to draft laws, but to remind himself every single day that he controlled nothing except his own mind. He wrote, When you arise in the morning, think of what a precious privilege it is to be alive, to breathe, to think, to enjoy, to love. Even as armies threatened his borders, even as betrayal rotted from within his walls, Marcus chose to anchor himself not in power, not in conquest, but in presence. He could not command loyalty, he could not command fate, but he could command his mind, his emotions, his actions. And that was enough. It was everything. In a world that trembled before his name, Marcus chose humility. He chose to govern not with fear, but with wisdom, not with anger, but with clarity, not with pride, but with purpose. He understood, as you now understand, that true respect cannot be taken by force. It can only be offered by how steadfastly you stand in the face of what you cannot control. You do not need to be an emperor to live this way. You do not need legions. You do not need titles. You need only a decision, a commitment made not once but every morning, every conversation, every moment of pressure. The decision to govern yourself before you ever attempt to govern anything else. The decision to live so deeply anchored in your own principles that no insult, no slight, no wave of disrespect could pull you from your ground. That is the true empire, not of land, not of influence, but of self. And it is the only empire that can never fall. So as you return to your life, to your challenges, your dreams, your daily battles, carry this with you. You are not here to silence every critic. You are not here to win every argument. You are not here to be liked by everyone who crosses your path. You are here to be unshakably yourself, anchored, aware, alive, to walk into every room, quietly commanding the respect you no longer need to ask for, to meet every challenge with a steady gaze and a heart at peace, to rise each morning, as Marcus did, and remind yourself, I have power over my mind, not outside events. Realize this, and you will find strength. And you will. And as you walk this path, not perfectly but intentionally, you will become something rare in this noisy world. You will become a living reminder that peace is not weakness. Presence is not passivity. Dignity is not pride. They are the quiet virtues that change everything they touch. And you, quietly, steadily, will become the storm's master, not its prisoner.